good sales, so good customer acquisition. So if you have a continuous flow of new business coming in, masks a lot of the challenges and problems of a business. If you have bad management, if you have a poor understanding of the finances, if you are having issues with your systems and so on, as long as you have that continuous flow of business coming in, it gives you some time to work on those things. Because we come into a lot of businesses when things are so dire where they're going, you know what, I just need some more sales. I need some more business. I need marketing. Can you come in and help me get that going so that it gives me some runway, some cash flow, so that I can actually then fix some of the other problems that I have within my business? Oftentimes, we're able to support businesses and get that going for them. And then sometimes it's too late, because they just don't have now enough resources to really invest into the marketing that they need to. So my advice would be,
Hello, Lance. Welcome to Master Delegator podcast. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well, Kristy, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're welcome. I'm excited to interview you today. You're actually my first interview for year 2025. And in the Philippines,
Yeah.
we have something we call Buena Mano, which means lucky person, like the lucky one, because you started the year. So you're supposed to bring luck and blessings all throughout the year for me, for my podcast.
Well, that's a lot of pressure, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, I'm not putting any pressure on you, but that's just something we have in the Philippines, but it's kind of funny. But yeah, so today we're gonna talk about something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners would find very interesting, because we're gonna talk about the secret sauce to building a successful business. And you have spoken to more than 300 businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs, and you talk to them about how they built their business, their struggles, and how they were able to overcome those struggles. And I know that because I've been featured on your blog, on your entrepreneur story series. So I'm really excited to now flip the table and have you be interviewed on my podcast. But before we dig deeper, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I'm a multi-business entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur actually ever since I was a child. So the first real business that I started was when I was 17 years old, and was doing an import business from Portugal and the US, and as well as China. I was importing farm supplies. I'm a farm kid, and so we were bringing in a bunch of farm supplies. And so that was like, I think it was around $200,000 in supplies that we were importing and then reselling and so on. So it was a legit business. I learned a
Wow.
lot of lessons in that, went to business school, had some businesses through university, and then started working for a company then out of university, trying to do the grown-up thing, I suppose you could say, and join the corporate world, and learned a lot in corporate. But the entrepreneurism in me, that desire to build something of my own was always there. And so before long, I found myself really not being all that satisfied with what I was doing from a work standpoint, and decided that I wanted to help other businesses, and started then a strategic consultancy in which I was doing business consulting, business strategy development, business planning, that kind of stuff for businesses. Learned even more than what, the body of all of the stuff that I did in school, and as well as in the corporate world. I just really dwarfed all of that knowledge with what I was learning firsthand by all working with all these really interesting businesses and business owners. And then parlayed that into my current business, which is Amplo Media, which is a digital marketing agency where we focus on lead generation and customer acquisition. And so I strategically shifted into that business, because one of the biggest challenges every business has is customer acquisition. That's a lifeline to our businesses. If we don't have customers, we don't have a business. And so when I was working on the strategy side, helping businesses with those operational strategies and so on, what I was finding is that a lot of them were still struggling with customer acquisition. So it didn't matter what you were selling, it didn't matter how good your strategy was in terms of, running a strategic business and really making sure your operations were aligned and everything else. If you didn't have a good product and you didn't have a great inflow of leads and a mechanism to turn those into customers. So that's what we focus on now here at Amplo Media.
Wow, I love that. And you're right. If you don't have leads, customers, you pretty much don't have a business, right? That's what
100%.
makes you a business, having customers,
Yeah.
right? So, um, I know we're gonna talk about a lot of things in this episode, but since you interview entrepreneurs about their struggles, challenges in the business, now it's my time to ask you, within 5 years of
Yeah.
running your digital marketing agency, what has been your most struggle as a business owner?
Yeah, and this is a common one that I think a lot of other businesses, the ones that I've talked to anyway, it seems to be a common thread, and that's um, when you're growing, uh, it's really difficult to maintain the systems operationally that you had when you were smaller, and so things start to break systems wise, and that I think has been probably my biggest challenge. We're in the profession of helping businesses, generate leads, acquire new customers. So that part of it has never been a real difficult part for us. The biggest challenge we've had is just managing that growth. So our internal systems get broken at each, kind of plateau that we move through in terms of our head count growth. And then the other thing I would say that has really been challenging at times is rapid growth also puts a huge strain on your cash flow. And so as much as we think, oh, if I could, double my sales, this is going to be incredible, right? For my business, everything's going to be wonderful if I could just double my sales or increase it by 20% or whatever that number is going to be. The problem though is that you do the work, you don't necessarily get paid right away. You got 30 days out there probably, and in some cases it'll stretch on longer. And so you start to have some accounts that get a little bit more delinquent or whatever the case might be, where it's just a little slower coming in, and you end up in a cash flow crunch. And that's hit me a few different times through the course of my company's growth. So I'd say those would be probably the biggest challenges that I've had to manage is just the systems breaking and then managing cash flow.
I love that. And I can totally relate to that as well. I've experienced rapid growth in my business. It changed me as a leader. It's different when you're handling just
Yeah,
5 or 10 people as compared to handling 30 to 50 people, right? It
it's totally
doesn't
different.
only affect your system, but also sort of like the culture of your company,
Yep.
right? So I actually know somebody. When I asked him about scaling his business, he said that he only wants to limit his team members between 15 to 20 only, because more than that, it's going to change the company culture already. Because then, as the CEO, as the business owner, you won't be able to talk to all of those employees, if it's more than 20. Although you can train somebody to be your operational support, but it's just different, if it's
Yep.
not, if it's you talking to them. But I think it just depends on what is important for an individual. Some they don't want to scale, some they want to scale, and they're able to do that successfully because they're able to lead people effectively as well. And
Yep.
talking about cash flow, I didn't even realize, during my first year in my business, that I have to project my cash flow, you know. And until I talked to a business advisor, and then he told me, you know what, this is what we need to do. Since you're growing, we need to make sure that you also have enough money that you can spend. And so he created sort of like a cash flow projection for me. And up until now, we've been using that. And I think
Yep.
that is really, I mean, not really the key, but it's crucial to project your cash flow before you spend any money. I don't know if that's something you did to overcome that challenge that you had.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And so the problem with the projections is oftentimes people will do the projections, in their annual planning, session with their accountant or their, some sort of financial advisor, a fractional CFO potentially or
Mhm.
whatever. And then it's kind of static. It just sits there and you don't revisit it. And that's what I found anyway. The way that I was is I would kind of go through it and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, everything's going to work out if things play out the way that I think that it's going to play out. And as you know, in business, nothing ever goes according to plan necessarily, right?
Yes.
So there's the lesson that I learned is that this is something that I need to be looking at each and every month. It has to be a living document that I'm continuously updating and adjusting my projections, whether that's on the customer side and the revenue side, or that's on the expense side. And it's really difficult when you're growing a service-based business, and you can relate to this because yours is service as well, um, in that you need to bring on oftentimes more people so you have the capacity to do the work before the work kind of arrives, right? And so oftentimes you're taking a little risk there. You've got enough to justify maybe half of another position, but not enough to really justify a full position. But in a lot of cases, it's tough to hire just a half position. And so you go out and you hire the full-time person being optimistic that you're going to be able to, bring in a little bit more business that's going to fill up their workload as well. And then if that doesn't happen, or if you have some attrition with some existing clients or whatever, then all of a sudden you could be in a situation where it's like, okay, I just hired some more people. That's an expense, but now I don't have enough revenue to justify that expense, but I'm still optimistic as all of us entrepreneurs are. And so then you kind of hold on a little longer. And then if those sales don't come in the door as planned, well, then all of a sudden you have your cash flows out of balance. And so as much as
Hmm.
the planning and the forecasting is good, you just have to be really nimble and you have to just really be on top of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That happened to me once as well. Learned my lesson, did the cash flow forecasting just at the beginning of the year and never look at it until mid-year.
Yeah.
But since then, my accounting manager, she's been updating me with our cash flow projection every week. So we have like a 30-minute meeting to kind of see how much came to our bank account and how much are we spending, because our our product is our people,
Right.
our team of virtual assistants. So we have to make sure that we have enough cash to pay them, next week when it's about time for payroll. So yeah, totally agree with what you said there.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into, the secret sauce to having a successful business. But before you talk about, the secret sauce for that, let's define what a successful business is. Maybe I can define it and then you can define it, because I feel like
Sure.
success is different for both people. But for
Yep.
me, I consider me having a successful business when I'm not stressed and overwhelmed in my personal life. Because I feel like if I'm stressed in my business, I'm also stressed, in my personal life. It affects my personal life. So when I can go on vacation for a month without me checking my emails, that is a success to me.
Yeah.
If I don't have any loans, that is a success to me, and if I can pay myself, as the business owner, the amount of money that I need to live and to travel, that is success to me. How about you?
Yeah, I would define it quite similarly. So time and money freedom is really what it comes down to, I think, in terms of success for me. Have I achieved that yet? No, I'm still working away at it.
I
It
think we
seems
all
like,
are. Sometimes
yeah,
you're there, but sometimes like, oh no, I need to put in more work. And like, okay, I'm there. No, put in more work.
yeah, that's right. And by freedom, I don't necessarily mean, freedom from working or freedom from having to be involved in the business. I really enjoy what it is that I do, and so I'm not looking to be somebody who's, a silent owner of a business where I'm getting good dividends coming out of the business, and I have the time and money freedom there. I'm young. I want to participate in the business. I enjoy the relationships with the team members as well as with the clients, and I love the challenge of overcoming whatever hurdle it is that a client maybe has that to their lead generation, customer acquisition stuff. And so I really enjoy that. So for me, it's having the time to be able to do the other things that I want to do in addition to the work as well, right? So, like you said, travel. I love traveling and escaping our cold winters here in Canada
Mm,
and whatnot. And so, making sure that I have that ability to do that. And so, for me, in that case, then it's actually I can work remotely because what we do is all digital, and so I can go down to Mexico for a month and take some time, work half days, and still have the company operating well, and I still get the joy out of that with that little bit of freedom. When it comes to the money, freedom, it's just obviously at some point when I am ready to retire, to be able to go and retire at that point is really, the end goal, I suppose. But yeah, time and money freedom is really what I'm looking for. And that changes a little bit as to what those two things mean to me as my life has evolved as well.
right, exactly. It depends, in the season of your life as well. So,
Yeah.
to whoever you are listening to this episode, if you haven't defined success for you yet, please do so, because that is really, really important, because everything that you do on a daily basis, that actually affects your dreams in life. Whatever you do today, it's either you're preparing for your future or you're repairing, just like what John Maxwell said in his book. So yeah, so
Yeah.
you have interviewed more than 300 business owners. So what are a
Yeah.
few things that you notice that are sort of like common between those business owners that are important to being successful in the business?
Yeah. Yeah. We've done a ton of interviews, and I should just explain, I guess, why we do that as well, because it's not really directly related to Amplo Media and what we do there from a lead gen customer acquisition standpoint. Um, I really am passionate about entrepreneurship. Like I said, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, really. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and so it's just really part of who I am. And I've always really tried to give back as much as I possibly can to the entrepreneurial community because I feel that it's really, really important for us to have, if we want real vibrant, dynamic communities to live in, which I think we all do, then we have to have a very vibrant small business community as well, because I think that without the small businesses, you don't have community the way that we want community to be. And so, as an example, the little league baseball team or the soccer team or some of the charities in that, who do they turn to? They don't turn to, the Amazons and the Teslas and these massive companies for support. They come knocking on the doors of their community businesses. And so we're the ones that take care of the community, the people. We're the ones who hire the people within our communities that then those monies that we're paying in salaries or get reinvested back into the community in the form of the person buying, a latte at the local coffee shop or the meal or the clothing store or whatever the case might be, right? So it just keeps circulating. So if we have a vibrant entrepreneurial community and energy, we have great businesses then, and we have then great communities to live in. And so I wanted to play my part. And so at the very beginning of COVID, when everything was kind of getting shut down and everybody was panicking, like in terms of businesses, one of the things that I was noticing was that everybody stopped spending money because we didn't know, like from a cash flow standpoint, how long this was going to last. And so we had to kind of just freeze everything, which made sense. But at the same token, business still had to go on for many, many businesses. And we also had to be ready for when things reopened, have to really, take on that pent-up demand that was going to be there. And so my thing was, okay, well, if you can't afford to pay for us to do it for you, which is what our model is, it's a done for you model, then what we're going to do is teach some people how to do some things themselves so that they can start to pivot their businesses online, because there was a lot pre-COVID, a lot of businesses still really didn't have a great online presence. A lot of stores and restaurants and so on were having to figure out a way to sell online. And so I started then talking to people, and I said, look, I'll give you the free advice, but on the condition that we record this so that other people can benefit from it. And so we'll release it as essentially a podcast, a video podcast, so other people can learn. And that's how it all started. And what I was
Oh,
finding, yeah, and what I was finding is that what really drew me anyway into these conversations was the talking about the challenges that they were going through and how they were overcoming and coming those and how they were pivoting their businesses. And I thought, you know what? There's a lot of people that need to be inspired at this moment too, to just keep on going, because it's such a difficult journey entrepreneurship is. And so I thought, well, what if we pivoted the podcast to focus a little bit more on what is it that people are learning through their experiences? How are they changing their businesses? What's working for them? What can they impart in terms of wisdom to others? And then what I was finding is that the best learnings, it seemed like, came from the biggest failures, right? That's the school of hard knocks.
hmm.
So I was really trying to tease out those lessons that people were learning from the challenges that they were bumping into, because I had a theory that most businesses go through probably like 80% of the same kind of challenges, just like you and I were talking about cash flow as an example. And I'm sure there's a ton of other things that we can relate on where it's like, yeah, okay, well, I wish I would have known that, when I started my business. I had to learn it the hard way. And I thought, man, if I could just save some people a couple of those lessons, there's going to be a likelihood then that they're going to be more successful, more profitable, and be able to grow better, and at least keep their doors open maybe longer as well, and avoid that valley of death that is littered with all these businesses that have expired before they've even reached 5 years. And so that's why I started doing all these interviews. So I just wanted to make sure we had that background so that people understood that it's not part of what I do in terms of Amplo Media. It's part of more of a passion of what I really care about.
I love that. Now it all makes sense to me.
Yeah. So, okay. So now getting into the secret sauce. So I'll show on screen here. So we actually published, after the first 200 interviews that I did, a little guide, which is titled The Secret Sauce of Building a Successful Business. And you can download this for free on our website. Just go to amplomedia.com/secret dash sauce, and that'll get you to a place where you can download it. And basically what we did with that book is we went, okay, well, out of all these 200 interviews, what are the commonalities here? What are those common challenges? Where are people getting tripped up? And then how have they overcome that? And we just took their stories, consolidated, and put it into the book. Now, I think we need to do, because we're over 300 now, we need to do that again. And this time around will be way easier because we have AI now, where we didn't really have
hmm.
AI then. And so we have the ability to really consolidate all that and find the best tips. But what I was finding in terms of commonality, it operationally was one of the biggest ones. So systems, and I mentioned this as being one of the things that kind of tripped me up in our business, is our systems would get broken. But that was one of the primary things that I noticed. The businesses that were able to scale successfully and become really profitable. So the more profitable businesses seem to have really spent a lot of time and energy dialing in their systems and then updating them as they were growing, obviously. But they spent a disproportionate amount of energy on their systems and systematizing their business and their processes and so on, documenting it all and training their staff on it, than the ones that were struggling. That was one of the the first big lessons that I saw. Do you want me to continue on with some other ones, or did you want me to break in between each one so you can
Yeah, you
comment?
can go ahead.
Okay. So that was a major one. The other major one, and this again kind of alludes to one of the top things that tripped me up. So cash flow, it's related to that, and it's the finance side of things, the accounting side of things, knowing your numbers. And so this was the other massive issue that most businesses were having some trouble. And they said, you know what? The successful ones would say, if I could be bigger, I could have grown faster if I would have taken care of that sooner, if I would have brought in a better accountant, a better bookkeeper, maybe a fractional CFO once I got to the place where I needed that. So I knew what those numbers were, and I knew how to manage those numbers strategically, enabling me to grow the business, know where to invest my hard-earned dollars, and then obviously manage cash flow and everything else that's going on. But that was probably the second most common thing that I heard.
So when it comes to finances, based on the people that you interviewed who said that they struggled with finances, like what was the worst thing that happened to them just because they didn't know their numbers?
Oh, they lost their businesses. So a lot of the people that I interview, they're serial entrepreneurs, right? So their first business, their second business, the third business, whatever. They've gone through a few where it didn't work out. They went bankrupt. They closed the doors. Some of them successfully exited a business or two, and then they have another business, and then that one fails, and then they are on to then their most recent one, which they're finding some success with. And so, yeah, the consequences for some of them was just, yeah, they ran out of cash flow. They couldn't meet payroll. And so then things just, the dominoes all fell basically, right? And so they were in a situation where they had to close their doors, or they were over leveraged on an inventory standpoint if they had inventory situation. Lots of different reasons, but failure is the worst consequence of improper management of the finances. Most of them, though, that were successful who didn't lose their business, their comment was, I could have been more successful. My business would have been at a different stage today had I understood my numbers better and kept better control of that, or had somebody do that for me than what I did. And so they sacrificed growth is what they did.
Right. Yeah. Wow. And then you mentioned the word profitability a few times,
Yeah.
and I feel like for many entrepreneurs, profitability may look something different, for me and you as well. But
Yeah.
in general, what does profitability mean? Like, how can you tell if a business is profitable?
Yeah. Well, I really like Mike Michalowicz's profit first model, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what and for those who are listening who aren't familiar, he's an author who of a number of different books on business. And so one of his books and one of his philosophies is profit first, where you really are paying yourself first, right? You're taking the profit out of the equation first, putting that aside, and then you've got, your expenses and so on that you have to then pay out in order to, deliver that product or that service or whatever the case might be. But you're always looking at it from a place of profitability first. Because if you don't focus there, if you're just one of these entrepreneurs that at the end of the month or the end of the year, you look at the bank statement and you go, oh, yeah, I guess I've got more money in the bank now than what I did last year or last month. Well, I'm doing better, or if I have less, then I'm doing worse, right? And so that's a really dangerous game to play. And so I can kind of going into the forecasting and so on that you were talking about with the cash flow. So really focusing on making sure that you are creating a profit in the business so you can reinvest that into growth as you're trying to grow and scale your business. It's so critical that we continue to build up that ability to grow, because as much as I agree with that one person that you were talking to who said, I just want to keep my business. I think it was under 20 people, I think it
Mm-hmm.
was, because I can manage that and I feel like I'm more connected to my employees then, which is great. But the problem with it is if your business isn't growing, and I know you can grow your business and your profitability and everything else, even with a steady head count because of innovation, because of AI, because of different things like that. You have an automation and so on. You have the ability to maybe do more output with the same resources and better efficiencies and so on. But there will come a time in which you kind of max that out. Well, you have inflationary pressures, as an
Mm.
example, just a singular issue alone that is going to put pressure on the wages that you have to pay. And so even if you got to that point where you've maxed out all your efficiencies, you've automated everything you possibly can, you're going to have to grow your revenue by adding more people probably. Otherwise, your business will slowly start to slip. And so it's it's difficult to just stay steady. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to really focus on growth. And the only way you're going to feel that is with a focus on profitability.
Right. Yeah. Unless you increase your pricing significantly every year, which a lot of consumers, they don't like that.
Are you sick and tired of being overwhelmed and afraid you'll never scale your business? Meet Smart VAs. Unlike many virtual assistant agencies that only assign one dedicated virtual assistant, we provide flexibility for growing businesses by assigning a team of experienced virtual assistants that can do different tasks to support your continuous growth. Visit smartvas.online to book a free discovery call and start growing your business.
When it comes to, the profit first idea, it doesn't mean that you as a business person, the business owner, profit first. It's the business
The
who
business.
needs to profit first because you have to reinvest those money onto the growth of your business. And what
Yeah.
do you think is I read the book Profit First long time ago. I wasn't sure if Mike mentioned like a percentage there. Did he mention how much percentage
No,
the profit is?
no. And I don't, I think most advisors won't like tell you what a ideal percentage is because it's so different for every business, right? Or every industry, every sector, and so on. What I found when I was going back into my consulting days, when I was working with a whole pile of different businesses, and I got to see those numbers. What I was finding is that most businesses, and again, it's not every business because some
Right.
businesses work on a very fine margin, and so they have to, and it's all about volume, right? So they take a little bit of profit margin, and it's just volume based. But for most small businesses, especially in the services side of things, what I was finding commonality was around a 30% target. So people were achieving, anywhere between 25, 28 to, 34, 36 in there somewhere. That seemed to be kind of the sweet spot for most businesses, what I was observing. But that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that is what your business is at all. Like it just really depends on the business.
Yeah, it may depend on the industry as well.
Yeah.
But if you have 30% profitability, that's really high. In my business, we're targeting 20%.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
least if we are between 10 to 20%, we're considered healthy. I consider my business healthy if we're between 10 to 20%. But
Yeah.
to have
Sorry.
30%, yeah, go
And
ahead.
you're talking maybe net profit versus gross profit then?
Net
That's the other
profit.
thing yeah. So I was talking gross profit.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. And then the net is really driven by how efficient you can get your operation, right? So if you're retaining 20% net, that's really good. Well, for most businesses.
We're not
Re-
there yet. So
Yeah.
that's the goal.
Yeah. 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 That's really good.
Okay, so you mentioned systems and then finances.
Yep.
What else have you
Another
noticed?
Yeah, another big one that kept coming up was on the HR side of things, and so human resources. So, especially service-based businesses like yours and mine, but every business is a people business. Really, at the end of the
Hmm.
day, it doesn't matter if you have products or not. You are still the business is functioning because of the people that are in the business, and so HR is just so critically important. So there's a couple of learnings that were under that HR umbrella. One of them was the hiring the right people for the positions that you have. And so one person had a really great piece of advice, and he said that one of the things that holds back a lot of companies' growth is that they'll hire somebody who fits the position that they need today, as opposed to hiring somebody to fit the position that they need that person to be in to at to like in the level of growth or the size of the company that you aspire to be. So let me just explain that a little bit better. So he said, okay, if you are a $1 million company, revenue company, and you have a desire to get to a $5 million company, as an example, so fivefold increase, you have a need maybe for an operations manager today for your $1 million company. Don't hire somebody who has experience managing $1 million companies operationally. Hire somebody who has operational management experience and working in a company that's over 5 million. And the reason for that is you then are tapping into knowledge and experience from somebody who's been there, done that, and they know what it takes to get to that 5 million or to operate at 5 million. And so if you hire somebody with just the experience at the million, you are not really gaining anything potentially. Now that individual could grow, into the 5 million as well. I'm not saying that they couldn't do that, but just generally, if you want to leapfrog ahead, it's better to be hiring people who have the experience, doing the things that are necessary and operating at the levels that are necessary for those the stage in which you're trying to get to. So that was one piece of experience or a really great advice in terms of hiring the right person. The other one was, and you hear this quite often, is fire fast, right? So take your time hiring the right person. So slow to hire, fast to fire is the mantra that I hear time and time again from people who have found, a lot of success growing and managing their businesses. And it stands to reason that when you're having difficulties with an employee where it ends up not being the right fit, so you've taken all the time and you've invested heavily in that recruitment process, you're never going to get it 100%, right? And so there are going to be people that are going to come into your business, or they started out great, and for whatever reason, things, start to sour. When you see that decline or you recognize that it's not the right fit, then don't delay. Try to replace that person as quickly as you can. Now, obviously, we as employers, we want to, be good employers, good at developing the people and so on. And so everybody's going to hit some sort of a challenge in their career where they're making some mistakes or whatever because they're growing too fast, or you're putting maybe too much pressure on them. You're expecting things of them that they haven't done before. Or it could be that they're suffering some sort of personal issues in their life as well, that they're trying to navigate through and so on. So you want to, have some care there. But in general, we hold on to poor performers much longer than what we should as business owners because of kindness and also because of inertia, they would say, is sometimes that pain to change, right? Think, oh man, I have to go and recruit this person, another person for that role. It's going to be time consuming. It's going to be a challenge. It's not something I want to do. Nobody really likes doing that, right? So you just become more patient. But the performance, unless you're really, really actively trying to improve that performance with the individual, just hoping for them to improve is never going to be the answer. And oftentimes you got to make a change.
I love that. How about when it comes to like nurturing their team members?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that also a challenge that you notice?
100%. I'm just trying to, think back to some of the conversations that I've had and then also reflect on my business as well. And so the way that we do it, and this is because I've interviewed a bunch of different HR professionals as well on the podcast. And so some of the advice that I was given is a lot of people think of the performance improvement plan, the PIP, as being something that's super negative. And so culturally within our business, we try to switch that around and go, this isn't something to be scared of. What the PIP is evidence of us really wanting to invest in you and your success. And so if you're having some sort of challenge, we want to make sure that we recognize that we both understand what's happening, and we clearly set out what that expectation is that the individual maybe isn't currently meeting. And so then we get it just, I guess, focuses the lens on what can we do to improve and support that individual. And so that's the way we look at a PIP, is that this is just our contract to you, our commitment to you to help you improve yourself to the point where you're achieving the expectations that we have so that you can have a wildly successful career here and a long-term career here at Amplo Media. And so we've really focused on professional development. Every one of our employees has a professional development plan. And so we talk to them about where they want to be in a year's time, in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time. And in some cases, that might not be actually with Amplo Media, and that's totally fine. But while they're with us, we want it to be as beneficial as possible for them as well. And so we want them to be developing themselves, because every moment they have with us where they are developing and improving and so on means we're getting the benefit of that, even if it's going to be, an exit at some point. And everybody generally is going to be
Oh,
leaving
yeah.
point anyway. So if you go into that with that mindset where it's just like, hey, we're going to improve the crap out of you, right? We're going to turn you into the best version of whatever role you are in as possible, so that you're going to be wildly successful here and you're going to be much more marketable, so you can go out and chase after bigger, better things. If the grass seems to be greener someplace else, that's totally fine. But we, as an employer, commit to that. And so that's part of that PIP, is we go, okay, something's going a little sideways here. In addition to the professional development plan that we already have, let's focus now on some of these things. And here's some now bite-sized kind of things that you can do, that we can do. And we have that open dialogue, because sometimes we're failing the employee too. We're not supporting them the way that they need to be supported, or equipping them with the right tools that they need in order to complete the job the way that we want them to as well. And so that becomes apparent then, because we're having this very open dialogue with them. And so then we can then fix the things that maybe you're missing and support them the way that they need to be supported, and really empower them to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said, that everybody's going to exit eventually. Even business owners, may exit eventually if they want to sell the business. But I feel like whenever there's a person or a team member that quits, I feel like most of the time it has a negative connotation. There's always that question, why that person left. Is he
Yeah.
not happy with the company? Did he have any conflict with somebody? There's always those questions. But for me, I'm learning that, when somebody quits, when somebody leaves, it's actually, to be honest, it should be something that we should celebrate about. Because first, if that person is not happy with the company anymore, then you should be happy that that person is leaving. Because first, that person is not going to give his 100% best when it comes to working for the
Yep.
clients or on the projects, and you can hire somebody else that's better to replace that person. And then another thing is, that person who quits, that person can find another job that he can be happy with. So it's like a win-win situation for the employee and for the employer. Yes, it's kind of hard, because you're going to have to recruit another person again. You have to interview people and stuff, but that is just life, you know?
It totally is. And yeah, like we actually do celebrate, all the alumni, Amplo Media alumni that have left. Right. Obviously, when we have to let somebody go, it's a different kind of situation there. But people who are moving on, we support them, and we applaud and the accomplishments that they had at Amplo Media, and we celebrate the successes that they have in the future as well. And you're right in terms of, like, there always needs to be a little bit of introspection, I think, from the management team to go, okay, what was the reason for the departure? Is there anything that we can inform ourselves from that. And so we always do exit interviews so we get a better
Mhm.
understanding as to the reasons. And sometimes it's just they like to have a change. And I
Mhm.
totally understand that as well, right? Because I'm somebody who if I was doing the exact same thing all the time, for my whole career, it would be boring. I couldn't do that. I get pretty antsy as it is just running this one business that I'm running right now. And so I like the challenge. And there's other people that are going to be out there that are like that. And it's like, yeah, that's might be the only reason why they left. But there could be something that's maybe broken internally, the systems, the support, the professional development, the management. Their manager maybe wasn't managing in the way that they needed to be managed or wanted to be managed, or uh, there could be some interpersonal issues, whatever, right? So you want to try to unsurface those so that
Right.
you can, or sorry, surface those so that you can then rectify anything that could be potentially wrong. Yeah, for sure.
I agree. There are so many things I'm sure that we can talk about, and I'm glad that you have the PDF available on your website, so that people can download that and then read some of the advices, you have there or from other entrepreneurs on how to build a successful business. So, is
Yeah.
there anything else that you want to add in order to help our listeners have a freedom-filled business?
Well, I mean, I guess should, I'd be remiss not to mention, another one that often surfaces was on the marketing sales side of
Mm.
things, like a lot of them were, that was a commonality where it's like, if you don't have the marketing dialed in, if you don't have your sales team and the interaction between the two, because those two functions are very interdependent. If you don't have that dialed in, well, then again, that's a lifeline of your business, and so it's so critical to do a good job. And so, yeah, I don't think that they were telling me that just because they knew I wanted to hear that marketing was really critical. I think that they were genuine in it, but that was definitely a common one that would come up often was, I wish I would have figured out the marketing, my go-to market strategy, the marketing to get in front of the right audience, really zero in on who my ideal customer profiles were, and make those personas and then build campaigns around that. And so what I always say is that good sales, so good customer acquisition, so if you have a continuous flow of new business coming in, masks a lot of the challenges and problems of a business. So if you have, a lot of turnover in your clients, a lot of churn because of, poor delivery of your service or your product or whatever, if you have more sales coming in the door than you have people that are leaving, well, then it masks that problem for a short period of time at the very least. If you have bad management, if you have, a poor understanding of the finances, if you're are having issues with your systems and so on, as long as you have that continuous flow of business coming in, it gives you some time to work on those things. And I think that would be the parting advice that I would have for people, because we come into a lot of businesses when things are so dire where they're going, you know what, I just need some more sales. I need some more business. I need marketing. Can you come in and help me get that going so that it gives me some runway, some cash flow, so that I can actually then fix some of the other problems that I have within my business? And so oftentimes we're able to support businesses and get that going for them, and then sometimes it's too late because they just don't have now enough resources to really invest into the marketing that they need to. So my advice would be, before it goes too far, as if you are starting to see that your sales are slowing down, try to address that before you get to the bottom, right? So that you can take that dip and turn it back upwards. And that's going to require some strategic thinking from a marketing standpoint, customer acquisition standpoint, and then really some integration into the sales side of things.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think when you interviewed me, I think marketing and sales, sales and
Yeah,
attrition were actually the challenges that I had, in
I
the
think so. Yeah.
business consistently. Yeah, so that makes sense. I'm glad that I'm not the only person who's having trouble with that.
No, no, you definitely are not. And this is the other thing, I guess, that I love about doing the interviews, because a lot of times us as entrepreneurs and people who are listening today, they're listening for whatever reason. Oftentimes it's because they're trying to figure out how to run their businesses better, right? And so they're trying to learn something along the way. And it's really easy to look at other people. It's really easy to look at Kristy. It's really easy to look at Lance and hear us talk and go, you guys have got it all figured out. Things must be so much easier for you all. And the reality of it is as successful as some of these people are, they still are bumping into challenges all the time. And this is just the nature of
Yes.
trying to run a business, the nature of being an entrepreneur. And so as much as you feel like you are the only one who has this problem or one of the few, and that everybody else around you seems to have it figured out. When you go to the local chamber meetings, everybody seems to have it all figured out. It's not the case. Everybody else around that room are having probably very similar challenges, if not the same challenges. And if they're not, they're having different challenges because their business is at a different stage. Their abilities are different, their knowledge is different, their experience is different, their customer group is different, the business makeup is different, like everything is different. And so they're going to be challenged with other things, but there are going to be a lot of commonalities. And so talk about that amongst your peers, to open up and be transparent about it, be vulnerable. And this is the one thing that I loved about our conversation when I had the chance to interview you, is you're kind of an open book where you're just like, yeah, like this is some of the things I'm struggling with. And you didn't kind of hold back and try to make it seem like, oh, I've got everything figured out. And because that's just not the case. And so I think I really appreciated that. And I'm sure your audience appreciates it because you're very open like that. And so just to be clear, so everybody's listening, I don't have it all figured out. I make mistakes. And I make mistakes on things that I should know better because I've talked to enough people. But that's just the nature of it, right? And you hope at the end of the day that you've done enough things to overcome those mistakes, or you've done enough things right that the odd mistake isn't going to sink the boat.
Yeah, exactly. I love transparency and vulnerability, and
Yeah.
one of my business mentors, he told me that, you know what, you probably have the same problems with other agency owners, so you should find other VA business owners, VA agency owners, have sort of like a mini cohort with them
Yeah.
and talk about your struggles. And after that, I actually now part of a cohort for VA agency owners. We are all VA agency owners, but we have different models. Like we're not competing against each other because we have different business models. And so we sometimes refer clients to one another as well. And there's about 4 of us in the group. So we're like, you're also struggling with what I'm struggling with. Like, how awesome is that? Like I'm not
Yeah.
alone,
Yeah.
and I think it's important that you find other business owners that you can be honest and vulnerable with so that they can help you and give you real and practical advice. Because if you mask your problem, you're not going to be able to get what you need, especially the support that you need. And sometimes, sometimes our problems in the business, sometimes you're okay, like, okay, I have 20 leads for this month. The following month, you're like, why did I only get 5? I've been doing the same effort since since last month, the same effort. But sometimes you just gotta take a look at different factors, like, is it the holiday season, where is the economy now? So there's just too many things, and it's easy for us to feel like, or to think that we're not doing our best, where in reality, you know that is just how life goes. Sometimes you have
Totally.
you have what you need, sometimes less, sometimes you have more than what you need. So I think being successful as well, it's not just it's not a forever thing. If you're successful today, you still have to work hard to be successful tomorrow. You know what
That's
I
right.
mean? It's like, if you're in the business for like about 5 years now, you know, for the past 5 years, I've experienced so many problems that are kind of the same, so it's kind of like, okay, it's kind of the same. Why is it not, is there any other new problem that I can be challenged with? Because us entrepreneurs, I mean, we love challenges, right? But when the challenge becomes, like a repetition all the time, like it gets hard, and
Yeah.
that's when you have to be strategic and innovative as well.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and a couple of things we didn't have time to touch on in terms of some of the ones that also came out, in the mix of key things for successful businesses. Um, Coaching, having outside coaches that hold you accountable was a really big one for a lot of people. They were saying that, and kind of in a similar flavor was developing a board of advisors for your business too. That was another one that was a really big one. So that could be a paid board or it could be an unpaid board. And there's a lot of philosophies there or differences of opinion in terms of which is better at what stage of your business and so on. But I never talked to anybody who had implemented a board that was not very thankful that they did. So I don't personally have one in my business, but it is something that was a real common thread, and I've thought about many times how to do that myself. And so it is something that I'm looking at creating. But yeah, so and there's so many more. So definitely for everybody, again, you can download this for free. Go take a look at it. It's at amplomedia.com/secret-sauce. And that will get you access to that. And then please tune into our podcast as well. And so you can hear some of those stories too. You can find it on all the major podcasting platforms. To search for Amplify Your Business, or head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find the archive with all of our interviews there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Lance.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kristy. It was a real blast, and good luck with everything, and Happy New Year to you, the rest of your audience. And I'm just honored to be on your show and definitely to be the first one of 2025. So I really appreciate that. Hopefully everybody got something to take away from this.
I'm sure. Yeah. You gave so many great insights. So thank you so much.